Like I try to mentor
Mm.
the younger
Nice.
community, not just in graffiti, but within like my my work world.
I had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Gusto from the Four Burners crew, TFP, Queens native, and a guy whose work I have seen and looked at and admired for many, many years. You have too. And he has this iconic hand style that I consider it very New York, whatever that means. It's got that New York style. And we learned so much more about where that comes from. And I say his work. You may not even know that you've been looking at his work. You could have been looking at a MTV Video Music Awards 10 years ago, and you were actually looking at Gusto's work. You didn't know that, but you saw it. And we get into that, his work at MTV and his larger interview. In talking with him, so many cool things came up. Computer hacking and software development and how he just taught himself that as a kid. We talk about art and design. Of course, we talk about his graffiti, and we talk about larger issues like what it is or what it was for him to be a new immigrant to New York City coming from Colombia. And we also talk about mentorship. And that is the focus or the emphasis of today's episode, is around Gusto's mentorship with several different guys. I'm not going to give away who he was in high school art and design classes with, but he had an amazing opportunity to be surrounded by a great team of writers back in the 90s. And with mentorship, with people that show you the ropes. And for those of you who don't know, in our graffiti culture back in the day, you always had some older guy or girl bringing you up, some older cat that knew the game, knew the rules, and would teach this to you. And this could be this could be etiquette with how you carry yourself, how you talk to other writers. It could be technical stuff. Back in the day, learning how to mix cans. There were so many small components that were passed down from older writers back in the day. And that system of mentorship has been totally disrupted, for better or for worse. I'm not sure. I used to have this feeling that it's like a huge loss to the culture that we don't have a system of mentorship in place anymore because of the internet. You could only learn from that person. Now we have YouTube and you have Instagram and you just have the internet in general, where you can find all the mentorship components that you technically may need to be able to go and become a graph writer. Back in the day, mentors would give you an outline, your first outline, to kind of teach you how to start doing this graph thing. And that's gone away. But in this episode, we get to hear from Gusto himself about his experiences with mentorship and the way that it formed him as a graffiti writer, but also clearly as a person and as someone who contributes to his community. What was the very first stuff you were doing? Like you said, Angelina Jolie put up a sticker. Were you putting up slaps? Because I know you're like really into stickers still.
Yeah. So at the time, no. So at the time, I saw the movie. I was super inspired to do that side of things. But then at the same time, I was still like in junior high school around that time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a kid in my art class. I happened to be in art class because I pretty much grew up just always drawing. So I was always drawn to art. Mm-hmm. And within that art class, there was some kid who would always be like what I perceived as catching tags, rocking like people's names and drawing like a halo and little angel wings and like cool little like putting drips on shit. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, yo, dude, like, what's that about? He's like, yo, bro, this is graffiti, man. So like that kind of like opened up my, my eyes to what that was. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, can you show me how to do shit? And he's like, nah, man, you're not down with this shit. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah. So like through that, it kind of like made me more interested in what the hell like that shit was about. Mm-hmm. Eventually, me and him became friends, and he kind of like taught me how to like catch a tag. So from the movie, like my first tag I think was Hazard, Hazard. The H flipping into the A with the crossbar I was the coolest fucking thing ever. Just because within the movie they had names like like Acid Burn and Crash and all these fucking cool all these fucking cool names. So I'm like, Hazard with with the radioactive sign would be fucking cool. That'd be so badass to do. So that's kind of like my first foray into graph.
And you had told me before that so you were born in New York City, you lived in Columbia, then you came back to New York City. This art class you were in junior high back here in the city, right?
Yeah, so I started going to school here in New York when I was about 7 or 8.
Okay.
Obviously, didn't speak any English, and my mom was like, just go to school and figure it out. So the language barrier was tough for the first year or two until eventually, like, I learned, English and got put with the regular classes, and that was when I got into that,
Yeah, okay,
program.
Interesting. And that guy that it sounded like he kind of mentored you early on, or at least that first he said you couldn't be down, but then he let you be down
for about that year.
And so, like, do you remember what that guy taught you? Because mentorship. Season 1, I talk about it a lot. Or I try to get into guys a bit about like who mentored you, if they did, because nowadays we don't really have any of those systems anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't.
Which is something that I try to, which we can get into later on. Like I try to mentor the younger
nice
community, not just in graffiti, but within like my my work world.
Yeah.
Younger designers, younger art directors. I work with a lot of like interns. I've done speeches at at FIT and at City College, and helping like people really get into art and how it can really change our lives, and how to use creativity to make a living.
And then back to that guy. Did he was he an active writer, or was he like a sketchbook kind of art school?
He was more like a sketchbook kind of dude.
Yeah.
Once in a while he like took me on a mission one day with like markers, and we caught like tags on like street poles, and that was kind of like as badass as I was at 11.
Okay,
but so he taught me like the very at that age, the foundations of like, getting a cool name, being able to flip it a little bit different. So the H crossbar into the A, flipping the A backwards was like, oh man, that's so cool. And adding quotes, or like a halo with an underline, like, little things like that. That was like so cool to see, because I didn't know what the hell that was about. It was like a foreign language that I was learning.
And, I'm curious because I was in San Francisco during this time. So I don't know how New York was, but like, were there a lot of guys and girls at your school who were doing graffiti in books, but they weren't actively bombing? Or was this guy kind of unique in that?
He was kind of like the only one, really. It wasn't until like I really got into like high school that I started paying more attention to graffiti, not only in my neighborhood, because I'm from Queens, but I went to high school in the city. So it forced me to take trains, and by being in school in the city, I went to an art school in the city, I met people from other boroughs. So it forced me to take trains to go hang out with them at their house.
Nice.
So I would take, the train here, the 6 train there, the 2 train here, and I'd see things in tunnels and on rooftops, and it kind of just blew my mind.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, and there was still, actually, I feel like the 90s, well, you would know better. Like, was the city on smash when you first started, like 95, 96?
Oh yeah, it was insane. Even like then I wasn't as attentive to like, piecing and all that stuff, but I would see just tags everywhere, and like, bubble letters and outlines. And, at the time I wasn't able to read stuff yet, because I was still so fresh. I was like a little guppy, in the pond. Yeah. It wasn't until like really, high school, even as a freshman, sophomore, where I met, like real writers, like, quote unquote, which nowadays are big names, that really learned how to read stuff. And I was like, holy shit, like I didn't know what I was looking at was an MQ, or, a Derek, or a Celt, or a NATO, up until then.
Yeah. And, I'm interested also how the language, your own personal language development came into play, because if English was your second language and now you are attempting to do graffiti, it sounds like in English, hazard was the first word. Was there a thought about that? Were you actively avoiding writing a word in Spanish, or did you just, hazard was so close to the Hackers movie that was
that's exactly what it was.
Had you thought about doing hazard in Spanish, or doing a different language tag?
No, not at all. Like once I started living here, it was like that was like the whole Spanish thing was only like at home thing.
Yeah, sure.
So just talking to my mom in Spanish, but in the real world, quote unquote, like it was just English.
And so you're saying that like through junior high, you were just kind of poking around with it. Do you have any other names after Hazard that you want to share?
Yeah. So the one before my current name was Sketch, just because I think like at the time, a little later in my junior high school, I met a kid that used to rack a lot. So I'd go with him just to like look out for him, and we'd go to art stores. He'd just steal whatever. So he'd steal like markers and pens just to steal. He just liked stealing, and so he stole like a bunch of sketchbooks for me. And obviously on the cover it says really big sketch, and I was like, well, that'd be a cool name to try. So like I tried doodling that name for a bit. Obviously it's more tied to art, so kind of like change from focusing on computers and hacking more into art. So I figured the name should switch along with it.
Yeah.
So I wrote sketch for a bit up until high school.
And that's when you got in high school, is when you came up on Gusto?
Actually, Faust gave me the name.
Who
so
did?
me and him, Faust, Faust, Faust.
Really?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Like, how did so actually, no, let's go back. You go to high school now. So you were at the art classes that you were at a traditional junior high school or middle school. And then you went to an arts high school.
Then art was like 80% of what I did in high school.
Yeah. Were you studying visual art?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And at that school, were they doing? I'm just curious if you had any digital art training.
Not really. They had a Photoshop class, which like I never took.
That's pretty advanced too. Because what was that, 97 that you studied?
Yeah, it was like one of the earlier Photoshops, and I never got interested in it really at the time. Up until some of the inklings of like my computer hacking thing. People wanted me to change their grades for their report cards.
Nice.
So I was like, I'll try doing it on the computer, and then through at the time Paint Shop Pro. Like I used that to switch people's report card grades for their parents.
Wow.
Obviously it wasn't official. It was more for their parents.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
That's hilarious. Okay, and then you met Faust. Was Faust at your school?
Yeah. So I've known him for now like 15 plus years.
Nice. And how did it come up that you got? Well, actually, I'm interested in that meeting. How did you meet Faust, and how did you develop your friendship?
Pretty much, we were in a mutual art class. Throughout the years, obviously, we were in a shit ton of classes together. But I think the first one we were in, he was like sitting in the corner drawing. So I think the first class we were in, it was like Art 101 or whatever it was. And our first project was creating a cover for what was going to be like our folder to put our work in.
Okay.
So, so obviously I'm, doodling a bunch of like, random shit. I think like drawing some like anime characters. Obviously, everybody was into like Dragon Ball at the time. So I'm like drawing some like Dragon Ball shit. He's doing some elaborate, like train looking perspective shit. And I'm like, damn, that looks fucking dope. Then he flips a tag on the bottom. And I'm like, oh, this kid fucking does graffiti. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's like the first graffiti dude that I see in high school. So, blah, blah, blah. After a couple of weeks of like seeing his shit, we ended up like linking up, and I was still writing sketch at the time. So we ended up like, I started like doing a bunch of stickers with him. He would show me his hand style. I'd show him my shit. We were exchanging throw ups and, so forth and so forth for a while. So we became like really, really close early on.
I'm curious also if he had, did he have nice hands early on?
Oh, dude, bananas. Like at fucking age 14, he could still burn most people today.
That's fresh. That's super cool. And okay, so you meet up with, was he writing Faust at the time, or did he have another name? Interesting. Yeah. Okay, wow. So you meet this kid Faust, you're in this new school that you're saying that there's all these different kids from all over the 5 boroughs. I went to an arts high school as well, and it was just packed with writers. What was your high school like as far as graph writers was concerned?
It was crazy. Within the school, there was probably like a handful of us.
Okay.
So like the ones that obviously come to mind besides being Faust were Seek, who also influenced hugely like my hand style, throw up, and piecing. He was the first guy that I actually painted with. He took me to a rooftop and I did my first piece. I think at when I was like 14 or 15 maybe. He even mentioned like I think a year or two ago, like, yo, I still got the flick of that piece.
Nice. How is it?
It was horrible, but yeah, I think it was I think it was like a hunter green fill, black outline, really horrible highlights. But I flipped like a lowercase G, and I thought I was a shit. And it was just comparing it to, looking back, I was like, holy shit, this is so bad.
Let's actually go back to the how Faust gave you the name. Was it a natural thing, or were you guys sitting down saying, hey, sketch isn't right? How did that go down?
So it's funny because that's basically my birth name. as it is anyway.
Okay.
So we were in typography class. Funny enough, me and him took typography class together.
Is it Gustavo?
Yeah.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah. So he came to class one morning, and I think he put a sticker down, and he was like, "Yo, bro, that should be your new name. You're writing that shit from now on." And I was like, "Oh shit, that makes so much sense." He's like, "Yo, bro, you got the gusto, bro. That's your shit."
Nice.
And I was like, "Yo, that is legit my shit." So from then on, I think from like 16, that's what I started writing.
It amazes me that we can have a simple sort of chance interaction with someone that we respect or look up to for whatever reason, and they can say one thing to us that changes our mind that day, and we start doing something like writing a new name on walls and drawing it all over the place, and before you know it, it's become this huge part of your personality and how you identify and how you move through the world, and which is what happened, with Gusto. And it's just really fascinating to be able to hear that and be able to hear his story. And so huge thanks to Gusto for coming on the show. And, it was great to be able to learn more about the way that this guy has moved through the world and the way that he has really made himself into the man that he wanted to be, and despite all odds, too. You can find Gusto's work on Instagram at Gusto NYC. That's GUSTO-NYC. You can also look on forburners.com to look at crew collaborative work that he's done with those guys over the years. And he has a personal website as well, gusto.nyc. On that site, you can see all kinds of work that he's done, including these new prints that he's doing, these sort of positivity posters that he's been most recently making. So go check him out and buy some of this man's work. Again, thank you guys so much for listening and subscribing. In 2 weeks, we will be dropping Gusto's full interview, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. You can also reach out to me directly on Instagram. I'm at Adam Fu, or the My Life in Letters page, which is at My Life in Letters Podcast. My Life in Letters is sponsored by SprayPlanet.com. Go check them out for all your mark making needs. We record every episode in New York City. My producer is Christopher Piccioni. Our intern is Madison Bradley, and I'm Adam Fujita. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Have a great day.